Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be talking about the wide receiver corps in the AFC South. We're going to get into those, talk about those, rank those in a second. But of course, with every episode, we start off with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And in this episode, I want to talk about something that I just checked out and saw, and that is Josh Allen, who is now going to be known as Josh Hines Allen. Now, for those that don't know, the Jacksonville defensive player, or would be defensive lineman or linebacker now. Well, depends upon the defense, or the 4-3 defense, I believe is what they're going to be. So he'll be a defensive lineman this year. But he changed his last name from being Josh Allen to Josh Hines Allen now. Maybe you watch the video, which the video is out on social media. He talks about, his lineage and all the different men in his family and people in his family and women in his family that go by Hines Allen, and he was going by Allen. Hence, of course, the talk of who's the better Josh Allen in the NFL. But he officially has changed his last name from Allen to Hines Allen to kind of join his siblings, which, one of his siblings actually plays in the WNBA for the Washington Mystics, for those that aren't aware. So he went ahead and changed his last name to be Hines Allen. So now he will be known as Josh Hines Allen, as opposed to Josh Allen, which, definitely definitely proud of him for what he wanted to do and happy for him in doing something that he felt was important to him in terms of changing his last name. Salute to you, Mr. Josh Hines Allen. And definitely, of course, there are people out there saying, oh, we don't get to say the battle of the best Josh Allen is and things like that. Well, doesn't really matter anymore. It didn't really matter as much anyway. The only thing that matters is, hey, he's happy with who he is and what his name is, and there we go. So salute to him. Wanted to, of course, give him, props for that on touring the AFC South. Now, kind of transitioning over to what this show is about. This show is going to be about the wide receiver corps in the AFC South. Now, of course, there's been talk about different wide receiver corps, whether you're talking about Houston, whether you're talking about Indianapolis, whether you're talking about Tennessee and their revamped receiving corps, and whether you're talking about Jacksonville, which added and subtracted from their receiving corps. Of course, can't say that Houston didn't add to theirs, which they did. But where would you rank these wide receiver corps? You have different things like, speed. Do you have dependability? Do you go by? What all things do you go by in order to rank these wide receiver corps? And I'm pretty sure there are plenty out there that have, even fans of their teams that have jumped out there and said, hey, our receiving corps is the best wide receiver corps in the division. While that may be true to you in your mind, it might not be true to you when you hear what I say. Now, there's going to be pluses and minuses for all these wide receiver corps, and I am including tight ends in this evaluation as well. So keep that in mind as we go through these. But obviously, to me, we're going to start off with the number one, and that would be the Houston Texans. I mean, to me, they're still the number one wide receiver corps in the division. You look at who they had last year. Look at Nico Collins, 8 receptions, 1,297 yards, 8 touchdowns. Huge season for him. I know no one expected that. from him. No one expected a lot from the Houston Texans. Well, there was a lot that didn't expect things from the Houston Texans like this. However, it happened, and they did their thing. You got to show respect and props to that, and definitely got to show props to Nico Collins. I mean, definitely a huge season. Wasn't necessarily expected. I mean, some had Nico Collins not being on the Texans roster before last season, which that's amazing in its own right to even say that out loud compared to, I mean, just looking at what he accomplished last season. So then you add into this mix, you add in Stephon Diggs. Now, there's a debate about whether he was phased in, phased out, whatever. In Buffalo, the fact of the matter from my vantage point is they changed the offense in terms of how they wanted to do things when it came to Stephon Diggs and, passing the ball more. And they went more to the running game. So they kind of changed their style of offense. However, it did seem like places was running thin with him there. So even after signing him to a big deal that previous offseason, but hey, it is what it is. And, now he's a Houston Texan where, of course, last year he had 107 receptions, 1,183 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's great numbers, especially in the second half of the season where, like I said, they changed the offense. So with that being said, I mean, that's a great number 2. Now, some would say he's a number 1, but to me, I think he's a number 2 in this offense, or at least going to be a 1B. That's what I think. Also, just to kind of give you a little bit more knowledge on his deal, they knocked it down to a 1-year deal in Houston. So basically, he's playing for a new contract. So, all the people that are talking about they don't know how he'll react to not getting the ball all the time, things like that. He's going to react a certain type of way. And I think in a better way because he knows he's got to probably be on his P's and Q's, because he wants that new deal. So we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, you can't forget about Tank Dell. 47 receptions, 709 yards, 7 touchdowns. And you got to also remember, he didn't finish the season. Broke his leg. He could have basically been a 1,000-yard receiver. But imagine this guy out there on the field, too. An explosive. He's not a tall wide receiver, but he's a very explosive wide receiver. And that in itself can be dangerous, especially in the slot. So, definitely they've got all the combinations or all the makings of a great wide receiver core. And then you throw in tight end Dalton Schultz, 59 receptions, 635 yards, 5 touchdowns. They brought him back for this season. And, I mean, looking at their wide receiver core and tight ends, of course, definitely a lot to be, proud of for what all this organization put together, going into this year compared to last year. They just added basically to what they had. And, the pluses are, I mean, you've got so many different weapons that you can go to in the passing game. I mean, I didn't even mention Brevin Jordan, who's another weapon for them at tight end. But you're pretty solid. You're very good at the top 3 wide receivers. You got Noah Brown as your 4. I mean, potentially, get John Mechie, the 3rd, who's still, it's his first camp. He's actually going through full speed, dealing with, cancer and things like that. Cancer and injuries. And then also, I mean, you just got, you got a Robert Woods that's still there. And I mean, and he could be the odd man out. So, just all those things right there. The minuses could be, you could have Nico Collins that had a breakout year. And this year, could come down to earth some. You have a Stephon Diggs who could, even despite being, in a contract year, he could cause some division there. Potentially, do I think so? No, I think that's kind of being blown up. Yeah, probably blown up more than it should be, but just throwing things out there. But those are a couple things, and then also, the tape out there. I talked with a few people, and of course, everyone mentions how great CJ Stroud was last year, and I totally understand that. And I'm not saying he won't be good this year, but there is more tape out there, and there's more of an off season for defenses to scheme and figure out different tendencies that CJ Stroud has. So that could potentially limit things, along with having so many weapons that, you know, the receiving numbers might not be the same for everybody across the board. So just something to think about there with that team. I did have to mention them as the number one wide receiver core in the AFC South. Now, I will say these next two are going to be interesting to go over because I think there's a lot of, you could go different ways with the next two wide receiver cores I'm going to mention. But we're going to mention those after this commercial break on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off on these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. Now, before the break, I did mention that we were going to talk about two wide receiver cores that you could basically say, kind of neck and neck, depending on how you want to view them. The first one I'm going to mention is the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Tennessee Titans last year, they had a wide receiver core that basically was DeAndre Hopkins, and you had appearances by a few other players like I had Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Chris Moore, some explosive plays as well. But, primarily it was DeAndre Hopkins at the wide receiver position. Now, going into this season, things look just a little bit different. And by different, I mean good different for the Tennessee Titans. They did add Calvin Ridley, who played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, came over to the Tennessee Titans, 76 receptions, 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns. That's not bad for a guy that's missed basically 2 years of football before he came back and played last year. Definitely solid numbers and good numbers for a guy that, like I mentioned, missed 2 years essentially of NFL football. Then you have, of course, DeAndre Hopkins, 75 receptions, 1,057 yards, 7 touchdowns. Doing all this while being the main primary focus in the passing game of every defense every single week. Not bad. Then, of course, they bring in Tyler Boyd from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been their slot guy extraordinaire for a while up there. Of course, Brian Callahan comes to the Tennessee Titans, and Tyler Boyd comes as well. 67 receptions, 667 yards. Goodness gracious, can't talk. And 2 touchdowns. So not necessarily just like wow numbers. Of course, comparing him to Tank Dell, they're 2 different type players. Tyler Boyd, I mean, he's not the speedster at wide receiver, but he just knows how to get open. Hey, it pays to have players like that. You can have all the speed in the world and not be able to get open. It's just true. Of course, with the tight end position, you have Chig Okonkwo, with 54 receptions, 528 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, looking at this wide receiver core, You have three guys that have been pretty dependable in terms of what they can do. I would say Calvin Ridley at times, dropping passes, totally understand that part. Kind of, the drops. He's got to clean some of those up. But he's been an explosive wide receiver, so I definitely can give him props with that. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins, definitely has been a guy on the opposite side of it that definitely catches the football. You don't see many drops out of DeAndre Hopkins. So, that for what people want to criticize Calvin Ridley for, DeAndre Hopkins, you can definitely see he's going to catch pretty much anything in his vicinity and made a lot of difficult catches last season with little to no space along the sidelines. So, and then Tyler Boyd, of course, in the slot, like I mentioned, he's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he does get open. Knows how to set his routes up, things like that. That's a huge thing for especially for a young quarterback with the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis. And Chig Okonkwo, of course, he is very talented. It takes more than one person. He's going to make one guy miss or break a tackle every single time he gets his hands on the football. However, he's got to consistently catch the football. There were times where he was open, he just missed the catch. So that has to be cleaned up as well. Of course, you can throw Josh Whyle in there. He was a guy that got injured last season. He's a 6'7" tight end that they got they drafted out of what they drafted out of. Anyway, they drafted him last year. And of course, he got injured early. Well, injured during the season, and that kind of wrapped up everything for him. But in this offense with Brian Callahan, you never know. He may come in handy as well. So a lot of pluses here. You have established guys at their position. Of course, the minuses. Of course, first minus that anyone's going to throw out there, Will Levis. They don't believe in Will Levis. But I'll say this: this offense is set up this year, especially with the offensive line upgrades and the valued offensive line, and bringing in Bill Callahan, Brian Callahan's father, and one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. Bringing him in, there's an emphasis on putting the pieces around Will Levis to see if he is the guy. So, all the things are set there. We're going to know more about Will Levis this season. Now, of course, that's but for many, that's a minus that Will Levis is quarterback. I mean, honestly, it is what it is, and people are going to think what they're going to think. As far as the other minus, some are kind of nervous about the age of these wide receivers, because these wide receivers are, they are 30 plus, which some are, nervous about that, and we'll see how that pans out. And if it pans out that their age ends up, into catching up to them, then we'll see how that happens. But if it doesn't, hey, like Aaliyah said, age ain't nothing but a number. So we'll see what happens when it comes to this wide receiver core in that aspect. The other wide receiver core that I kind of want to throw out there along with the Tennessee Titans, Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jacksonville Jaguars did lose Ridley to the Titans. So that did hurt them some, because the original plan was to bring in Gabe Davis, who they brought in from the Buffalo Bills. We're going to talk about him in a second. To put him with Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. However, it didn't pan out, obviously, because Ridley came to the Titans. So, now that brings in Brian Thomas Jr., which we're going to talk about in a second too. But getting back to Christian Kirk, he is the guy there. To me, he is the guy. They originally signed him from the Arizona Cardinals, and many questioned his deal, but he has shown that he is the guy. And meaning last year when he got hurt, the offense didn't quite flow the same because he wasn't out there. He's that security blanket, that guy that, okay, something happens, okay, I need to come to him. He's going to make a play for me. And a lot of times that's what who Trevor looked for, along with another gentleman who is their leading reception guy. So we're going to get to him too. Also, Brian Thomas, you have him there. He's a rookie, so there's no stats on him. We can only talk about college days and the things he did there, which he's a big, explosive guy that he definitely can be a little bit more shifty for a guy his size, which, it's definitely amazing to watch. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of develops as the season goes on, or if he comes out of the blocks just smoking. We'll see what happens. As far as Gabriel Davis, they brought him over from the Buffalo Bills, like I mentioned. 45 receptions, 746 yards, 7 touchdowns. Originally to be the slot guy. We'll see how that all develops. More than likely, he'll still be in the slot. Though, we'll see what happens there. But the inconsistencies with him over his time with Buffalo, whether he shows up or whether he doesn't at times on the field, that'll be something to watch as this season develops. And, of course, tight end Evan Ingram, best tight end in the division. That is without question. 114 receptions, 963 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I believe that he is definitely a solid weapon. Of course, he's a solid weapon. I mean, 114 receptions. He was the security blanket for Trevor Lawrence. Would you like your tight end to have 114 receptions? No, I don't think you would. But, hey, he did what he had to do and, produced. So I got to give him props for that. He is by far the best tight end in the division. Now, the pluses for this wide receiver core is because, you do have a tight end that can do a lot of different things. Evan Ingram, you can space him out of the slot, do all different kind of things. He's basically like a big wide receiver. So, definitely can do a lot of things with him and use him in the passing game in different ways. And also, Christian Kirk comes back. That's a plus. He comes back for the entire season. Of course, like I mentioned, had surgery for a core muscle injury that knocked him out about halfway through the season, if not a little bit further along the season. So they do have weapons, and Gabriel Davis can take the top off of defenses, which huge with what Jacksonville wants to do in terms of spreading the field. Okay, let's get to the minuses. Christian Kirk, he's coming off an injury. Will he be kind of the same guy? I kind of tend to think he will be, so I'm not worried about that. As far as minuses, Brian Thomas Jr., there's no knock to him. We just don't know what he can do on the NFL level yet. So we'll see there when it comes to that. When it comes to Gabriel Davis, inconsistency. He's been inconsistent. Like I mentioned previously, he's been inconsistent for a majority of his career, honestly. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can gain some of that consistency going back to a state that he's familiar with. He played college ball in the state of Florida. So, it'll be interesting just to see how he tries to hone in some of that consistency. And because of that inconsistency, I kind of, the Titans and the Jags wide receiver corps are kind of neck and neck. It depends on what you want. If you value the experience, you put them at number 2. If you value, the experience and things like that, you put them at number 2. If you're scared of the experience, you put the Jags there. If you want to, kind of value Evan Ingram as being one of the best pass catchers in the division, then you use the other Jaguars there at number 2. So this totally depends upon what you want to go with when it comes to your evaluation process with the wide receiver course in the AFC South between the Titans and the Jaguars. So, I'll give my final rankings at the end of the show. I'm pretty sure people are wondering. But, right now, of course, the Texans are obviously the first in the division there. But I've got one more I want to mention, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. But first, we're going to take a quick commercial break on touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. And like I mentioned before the break, we're going to talk Indianapolis Colts and their wide receiver core right now. Now, the first guy that always has to be mentioned when it comes to the wide receiver core of the Colts, that would be Mr. Michael Pittman Jr. 109 receptions, 1,152 yards, 4 touchdowns. Definitely proved that he is a number one wide receiver, at least for the Colts. He definitely proved that. People still question whether he is a number one wide receiver. I mean, there is some thoughts there, but, you have to say for the Colts, he is their number one guy. There is no doubt about that. And he definitely was consistent. You would like to see more touchdowns out of him being your number one wide receiver. However, you get it. And then, of course, to say the same for Christian Kirk as well. But, he didn't finish the season. But after, though, Michael Pittman Jr., you do have some questions there. You'd have a Mr. Alec Pierce, 32 receptions, 516 yards, and 514 yards, 2 touchdowns. He regressed a little bit. Now, some could say that, Gardner Minshew being there kind of hurt a lot of the wide receiver core. However, it just seems that Alec Pierce is, not necessarily the guy they thought he was when he came out of college. And, he's a guy with speed and can take top off of defenses. However, what else does he add to the equation is the thing. That's the thing. Can he do all the other routes in the route tree? Another thought. Okay. After that, you have Josh Downs. He was the guy they drafted last year, I believe in the 3rd round. I can't remember what round. But anyway, 68 receptions, 771 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, he definitely, when he got opportunities, made things happen. And I definitely think he is part of the future of this wide receiver core. It's just going to be interesting just to see how they kind of place him. Will he be in the slot, which I think he definitely benefits well from, or will he be placed in other different places outside, things like that? I think more you see him in the slot. That's just my personal opinion. I think they continue that development there, and he continues to grow. Do I think he cracks 1,000 yards this year? It's very much potentially they could. So we'll see what happens. Definitely a talented guy. Of course, after him, you have A.D. Mitchell. Of course, he went to high school, high school in the Nashville area at Cane Ridge High School, which, for those who don't know, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Cane Ridge is maybe about 10 minutes from me, Cane Ridge High School. So, yeah, that's where he played for some of his high school football before going to, of course, Georgia and Texas. But he's definitely a super talented wide receiver and is a guy that can, definitely take the top off defense as well as run, some excellent routes. So I believe that eventually it's going to be Pittman, A.D. Mitchell, and Josh Downs, and that Alec Pierce could be the odd man out. Now, the reason, I want to, they have pluses, but they have athleticism, they have youth. They brought in some guys that can actually make some things happen. The minuses are, of course, Josh Downs, second year, league, people getting used to him in the league to see how, he makes an adjustment to the adjustment that's made to him. As far as A.D. Mitchell, he's probably going to come in and do some things. I think he's going to take snaps away from Alec Pierce. It's going to be interesting to see just how quickly he develops in this offense. And for Alec Pierce, he's got to show more. He's got to show more with the route running and things like that. Because if he doesn't, eventually he's going to find himself behind A.D. Mitchell and Josh Downs, which, I do think eventually is going to happen anyway. But we shall see what happens. But here's the moment of truth where I give you my rankings for the wide receivers. Now, I did mention, of course, like at the beginning of the show, Houston Texans are number one. And I don't think that's a question. But when it comes to 2, 3, and 4, I'm pretty sure that all these teams have questions. And my team that's second, in my opinion, I'm going to go with, I'll go with the veterans. I'll go with the Titans on that, number 2. I'll go with that. I do like the veterans that they have and things like that. It's more or less of less unknowns in terms of the wide receivers that you have. I know you have a less experienced quarterback, but less unknowns, more veteran guys there. As far as the Jags, I'll put them in 3. Brian Thomas Jr., how he comes in, that definitely could change a lot of things that I'm mentioning now. He could come in and do his thing, and next thing you know, they're the better wide receiver core. So, hey, movement can happen. And then at 4, I do put the Colts. A little bit more unknowns there. I do like Downs. I do like A.D. Mitchell. I'm not sure about Alec Pierce. So that kind of throws me off. And then, of course, the tight end position for them, Colin Granson, 30 receptions, 368 yards, 1 TD. Nah, that cannot be your leading wide receiver to me. I mean, leading tight end, I should say. Got to be a little better than that. But, that's my thoughts. Would love to get your thoughts on the rankings of these wide receiver core as well. We will be, of course, doing other positions as well. You guys stay tuned to see which one will be going up next. Of course, I am Mike Patton, host of Touring the AFC South. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter, Word to Prince, at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, Touring the AFC South, you can find on all listening platforms. That'd be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. And we're also on YouTube. Wherever you like to listen or watch the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, click the bell so that way you get notified if any new shows dropping or any new material. And also, of course, on all the other listening platforms, go ahead and rate the show. And, definitely it is appreciated. I thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. We're out. Peace.